What is up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of the Off Market Operator. Today's show is very similar to a few of the previous shows that are on the boat here in San Diego. Today we got a little overcast. We got the marine layer that hasn't quite burned off yet because we're down here at 9:30, 10 a.m. in the morning. But today, you guys, I have an awesome guest. His name is Caleb Hommel, and he is 20 years old, and he is crushing it. He's at 28 units now, trying to get to 100 units this year, mostly seller finance, as well as doing a bunch of other cool stuff. You guys are gonna love this show. So without further ado, let's get right into the show.
People don't fail at real estate because they suck. They fail because there's too many ways to succeed. That's why I suggest you focus on the most important skill in all of real estate, which is finding deals. I'm Ruud-Johnson, and in this podcast, I share the exact steps I've used to source 400 deals by age 24. This will allow you to do three things: control your deal flow, make unlimited income, and build your empire as an off-market operator.
Well, man, appreciate you coming down on the show, man. It's you kind of got another guest with you. You got the San Diego marine layer. That'll probably burn off sometime in the next 30 minutes or an hour. But today, man, obviously with you being young, I think you have a lot of tactical stuff you can give people on your journey, what got you to where you are at a young age. I think, 20 years old, right? Being 20 years old and having any kind of meaningful business under your belt, there's something there that people can take from. So we're going to kind of progress through that. But start me out, man. Take me back to your baseball journey, right? You planned, we just had this conversation off camera, but your original plan was to, go play baseball, and you got into it, didn't like it. Kind of give me the story. Really what I'm looking for too is, what was that trigger for you going, okay, college isn't for me, that route's not for me, I want to try to do business of any sort. And before I even get into what kind of business you're doing, just start there.
Right, yeah, so kind of baseball, whole life growing up, same thing with you in basketball. You think, like when you're little, I want to go play in the league, I want to play in professional, all this stuff, and it's really glamorized. And then went through high school, solid high school career, didn't the offers I was looking for, went to a junior college, was kind of just like, this is cool. And I started kind of looking around on kind of the opportunities at junior college, like career-wise, and I'm kind of just looking at the degrees and stuff, what they make. I'm like, I kind of want something a little bigger, and kind of then I got to the opportunity cost of, hey, do I play 2 to 4 more years of college than maybe indie ball, professional ball, and kind of give up all this time where I could be starting a business, getting into real estate, and kind of decided it just wasn't worth it to keep playing. So after that first semester, kept playing baseball until then, stayed in school until then, and kind of just decided to pull the trigger and drop out.
And that trigger to drop out, right? Was it a random Wednesday, or you're just like, I'm out, or was it the semester end, or what was how did that go? Was it were your parents on board? Give me.
Oh,
because usually that story is not just, I dropped out. Usually it's I fought my parents for 2 months, or everyone told me I was going to be a loser, or whatever the story is around that.
Yeah, no, definitely. You hit it on the head. With me, is coming. I had a great senior year in baseball, and then so when I did decide to drop out, eventually I got everybody telling, "Oh, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. You're going to fail." All this stuff, and it was like kind of like that rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. But dropping out, you said your parents usually aren't on board. I didn't even tell my parents. I just was like, whoa, I'm going to go for it. And then they noticed I wasn't going to campus again. And my dad's like, what's happening? And I was like, I'm not going back. He's like, 6 months, okay. Then we can figure it out. Then you either go back to school, you get a job, or you move out. And I was like, I'll take the 6 months to see what I can do. But yeah, as far as dropping out goes, it kind of happened at middle of the semester, early AM baseball practice every day. And then I knew I was kind of getting over it when I didn't want to roll out of bed anymore for the 8 a.m. practice. I used to love practice. It was my favorite thing. And then I was kind of like, this isn't it anymore. Then, I only had one class in person at that point, so I started kind of fizzling out of that, and then I had my mind made up basically halfway through the semester, but didn't even tell my parents until after. like a month into the next semester.
Yeah, when I dropped out, I think it was I was down again at a school in LA, it was Pacific, and I remember I'd gone down for my first semester, completed it. I went down in the spring, so my first semester was a spring semester.
Okay.
I had done running start in high school, so I had 2 years done. And I remember sitting in an accounting class on a Tuesday morning in August, right when school started, and I was like, this isn't for me. And I remember I drove home from class, and I packed my stuff up on a Tuesday afternoon, and I drove the 28-hour drive to Seattle.
Wow.
Back to where I was living at the time, and was done, man. And I had a little different story. My parents were kind of like, we can kind of understand that you have more of a business brain, and that school isn't the best place to nurture that. Which I was lucky in that fact. But yeah, man, it's the only reason I ended up dropping out is because I had running start done. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to give myself 2 years. And if I really suck for 2 years, I can go back and graduate on the same timeline that all my peers do, right? So I had that for me. But talk to me, man. So you dropped out. What's the next year look like, right? Was that last year you dropped out? Was that 2 years ago?
That was like kind of right at the beginning of 2022. So kind of dropped out at the same time, started learning from the mentors I credit with almost everything for me is Christian and Cody there. I just saw Cody was like 21 at 81 units or something. I'm like, what is this guy doing? Like, then I kind of listened to his story a little more, and it's like he started with $3,000. I'm like, I only have 300, so kind of similar. So I'm just gonna chase this. Worst case scenario, I fail, and like I like a lot of people when they drop out, they like, or they hear dropping out, they freak out. It's like you just go back. The worst spot you can end up is you just go back. You fail.
Yeah,
at
the
business.
fear, dude, is it's the funniest thing because there's really like there's like the lives we all live. Like the worst thing that happens is the worst, like really the worst possible job you have, right? If you're not homeless, is you're in a car driving people around an Uber, right? And there's nothing against Uber.
No,
like,
I did DoorDash. So I know.
Like that's the worst case scenario, right? Which is like you go to anyone in the history of the world and you say, hey, your worst case scenario is you drive around and drop off food and you make okay money.
It's not the worst thing.
Yeah, they would laugh at you, right? So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just think there's too much fear, like you said. It just grips people, like just suffocates them. I was like, okay, 6 months. If I fail, I go back to school and I get some stupid degree, whatever, and I figure this out later. So that kind of next year, I went to seller financing. I'm buying multifamily routes. So I was just grinding that. I didn't know where I was going to buy. I knew I getting started in San Diego where we are now. It was a little tough. So I was like, I'm kind of looking at a state, all that stuff. So it was just every day, just on the phones, hitting the phones for like.
And who are you calling?
I was mainly brokers because I'm switched that up. But when the market is red hot, there were so many deals on market. I'm just calling them. I mean, I can't qualify for a bank loan at that point. So I'm calling stuff that's been sitting on market for a while, like going through the script, asking about seller financing, and then got laughed at most of the time. But eventually started calling them. They're like,
so let's slow down a little bit. So you're pitching the brokers seller financing.
So how I'd go through it, I was like, go through the whole script, and I'd kind of slip in the last second. I'm like, hey, how do you want to take this one down? Conventional, or are we going to get creative on this one? And most of them are like, you can go borrow at 3%. We're not doing creative financing, seller financing. So that was really difficult when I was getting started.
That was back before the market had shifted, correct?
Yeah, about, a little over a year ago now. So it's just hammer the phones, going through that. Called like 500 plus brokers, maybe more. It's probably closer to 1,000. I only wrote down 500 of them. But
and how were you choosing the markets where you were calling?
In all honesty, so I started off looking in Northern Nevada up by University of Reno and stuff, because I knew some people up in the game up there, brokers, people, investors, agents up there. And I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna start here. And then the town I wanted to look in was a place called Fernley, Nevada. It's awesome. Growth's off the charts. Awesome little town. There are like 1 or 2 deals on market that were double the price they should have. I'm like, in my head, I'm going the broker route because I can't meet up with all these owners for that stuff. It makes absolutely no sense to look somewhere where there are only 2 deals and everybody and their moms looked at them already. So then I kind of had to decide, hey, where am I going to pivot to? And then it came down to Texas or Florida, just because the growth, the inventory, the legislation. And I'm like, well, Texas is halfway closer across the country, so that's kind of why I decided Texas on a whim.
So your portfolio's in Texas?
Yeah, all of it.
Nothing in San Diego?
Nope, not yet at least.
Interesting. Is that just, and I've done a decent amount of commercial stuff, but I'm not buying seller finance stuff. So why is it a price point thing which made you go to Texas? Is it the government sucks in California? Is that the like, what was the thing that pushed you towards Texas?
The 3 biggest things were, one, because I was looking at deals in the market, calling brokers, so I needed inventory to call because I was just going shotgun approach. I needed people to call, a lot of deals to call. So that came down to either Texas or Florida. Texas had more legislation. California, they don't like landlords very much, to say the least. So kind of decided getting started, I didn't want to put myself through that headache. And then, price per door, I mean, compared to here, it's dirt cheap. I mean, it's still appreciating a lot out there, but it's like here you're looking at maybe $200-300 a door. Out there, it's like I'm getting stuff for under $100 all over the place.
Gotcha. And if you had to say one reason you're buying, you're primarily looking for cash flow, right? That's what Cody
you buy off long-term cash flow. I'm not one of those guys. I mean, here, don't get me wrong, if you're a gazillionaire and you want to park cash and just get a ton of appreciation, I don't know if there's a better spot than San Diego.
Yeah, that's for sure. No, yeah.
But cash flow, it's definitely a little tough when it's like, gosh, you're like 3 caps or something around there. It's not easy.
So I remember, man, when I was starting, and I was 19, and I had heard about this wholesaling thing, right? And I had similar story to you. I sat in my parents' upstairs bedroom with my buddy. We were sitting at Applebee's, and the 2 for $20 at Applebee's, and he was like, I think we should try this wholesaling thing. And I was like, you're right. I opened my Instagram, I see some dude flashing a $40,000 check. Kind of like you see Cody on Instagram talking about his 81 units. It seems like a fairy tale.
Exactly.
And
it's not real.
I started cold calling myself, man, for 6 months, nothing. Finally got that first deal, which for me was a $105,000
That's awesome.
wholesale check. And that shifted it forever for me. But it doesn't feel real until that point, right? So
100%.
What was your first deal story of what made it tangible for you and what led up to that? How'd you find that deal? Kind of give me the whole first deal story rundown.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was a ton of calling on market, and then this place called McAllen, Texas, South Texas, which is on fire still, more than I even imagined when I bought there. Call the broker, going through it, and clearly overpriced. That's how you're going to get seller financing at the start. You had to have overpriced, a ton of value add, and this is that deal. And so calling it, and then kind of in the last second.
It was on market.
Yeah, this was on market.
And how long had it been sitting on market?
God, 200 days.
Okay, so for a while.
Yeah, he was overpriced in a market that was red hot.
Yeah.
And then I was like, went through my numbers, called her back. I'm like, hey, it still doesn't make sense with the bank. I was underwriting like 5% bank, and I'm like, would he be open to carrying a contract? He's like, let me see. Then he ended up carrying a contract, went back and forth. So yeah, I'm at 4% interest on that one. I had a really cool term on that one as well. Christian talks about it a little bit. He likes to brand it. It's 6 months of no payments. So it's just, I need a reserve. I was 19, broke as a joke when I closed.
Yeah, that builds it for you.
Yeah, it's got like a $35,000 reserve just off the jump like that.
Yeah.
So that was huge.
That's awesome, man. And so you found it through you cold calling yourself. Go a little more in depth, and for the people that are listening to talk to you, because I think it's hard to. I think we all get what a good friend of mine calls the curse of knowledge.
Yeah.
Right, where we understand something so well, we can kind of run through it. But break it down. If I was, like I was a third grader, and you're explaining to me how you finance that deal, what does that look like? What are the terms? How do you negotiate that? What does that mean? Pretend I know nothing.
Right, so it was 10 units in McAllen. I bought it for $900,000 purchase price. And it didn't make sense with the bank, with the down payment from a bank, the interest rate from a bank. And so I was kind of like, hey, we're going to get creative on this. So seller financing is where the seller acts as the lender instead of a bank.
Yep.
And from there, my terms, stuff you're not going to see with a bank. I had 10% down payment, which I didn't have any, so I had to go out and raise capital for the first time.
Pause. How'd you raise the capital? Now we're getting into it.
Yeah, so raise the capital. There were two guys I had known for a while that were in the space. Kind of grew up as family friends. I had known they were real estate investors, general contractors, roofers.
And you needed 90 grand.
Yeah.
And are you raising capital as well are you doing any kind of value add right away, or are you letting your reserves build first?
That one, it was the reserves build, and then, so there I'm like, hey, I pitched them, they're like, okay, we'll give you 30 grand each. And I was like, okay, sweet, I'm still short another 30 grand. And so from there, I literally, everywhere and anywhere you can possibly, going to all these meetups, Instagram, and it actually came to fruition off Facebook. It was a Facebook group said, hey, I've got an opportunity looking for some guidance or help on it if anybody would be interested. Lady reaches out from Iowa. She's actually a very close friend now. She's like, hey, I'd love to help you out and get started and kind of get your journey rolling. So the third investor came from a Facebook group, somebody I'd never met.
Man. That's awesome. And okay, get me back into the contract, right? When you negotiate your terms with a broker or a seller, what are some things that help you you're 19 years old, calling someone in Texas to have them hold a contract for you on a deal. Like, what does that process look like? It's not a one phone call.
Oh, no, it's not a one call.
So what does that look like?
Yeah, so it's going back and forth. Started out with, like I said, eventually hit the 10% down, 4% interest on it. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me was not telling anybody my age. Just because if you tell anybody you're 19 years old,
they don't know, right?
No.
That's the thing I tell people as well is if you're going to do a deal, no one assumes, like if you're calling to buy a house, they assume you're an expert.
Exactly.
Until you prove to them that you're not, they assume you know what you're doing. And I'm sure you have that, yeah.
100%. It's just about not invalidating yourself. If you say some really stupid stuff on the phone that just makes you sound like you have no idea what you're doing or you're super inexperienced, then the broker is going to probably ask you for a proof of funds or whatever. But if you just go through a talk track and you understand the numbers, you understand what you're talking about, hey, this is why the deal doesn't work because of X, Y, and Z, it would work at X, Y, and Z. And they're like, okay, he's a competent buyer. He understands what he's doing. And if they bring up like financing or anything, you kind of just say it confidently, roll right over it. But yeah, people get a lot of imposter syndrome. I mean, I sometimes still get it. It's like,
of course. Right.
People don't realize it's like when you're getting started on the phones, it's like that imposter syndrome doesn't just, once you buy a deal, it just all changes. It stays forever because I mean, with entrepreneurs, we're always hungry trying to get to the next level. So yeah, but yeah, just staying confident on the phones, it's your tonality, just what you're saying was the biggest thing for me.
Okay. So you buy the first one, and that was with a partner, correct?
Yeah, that was with a partner and then 3 capital investors.
So what does that deal look like now, sitting here in 2023?
Yeah, so we had the $30,000 reserve. We've turned a few units, and now we're just in the process of just continuing to value add. We have about $300 to market on most of our stuff still. We've got 2 of them up, but we have $300 on the rest of them. So it's just renovating the units when they come due. It's kind of nice and slow.
And what is so the number breakdown on that deal now? Like, what is at the monthly, right? Because that's what people want to care about. They care about cash flow, right? You're talking about 20 years old. You didn't have anything to your name. You get going in real estate. You get your first deal. And does that one deal change your life, where you're like, I'm not working anymore? Or like, what are the like? the questions that people care about, right, is cool, 900 grand, 10% down, you build some reserves, but like, is this thing putting $2,000 a month into your pocket every month? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That's the tangible stuff,
No,
right? Like,
no, 100%.
I talk about wholesale all the time, and I'm like, yeah, you do a $25,000 deal, but you got $5,000 in marketing costs, you got a team to pay, and you're not netting 25 grand.
No,
right?
exactly.
And I think that's the thing that can screw people's head a little bit. So what's if someone's going to buy right now a $900,000 what do you said, 10plex?
Yeah.
In McAllen, Texas, and they're 4% interest rate, 10% down, the 6 month, whatever you said, kind of dead time there to build their reserves. What are they looking at? Like, are they retiring after? Like, what's going on?
That's
here?
a great question. I mean, ideally, I wish I could have retired after, but the truth I learned with real estate, when I didn't 100% understand getting into it, in all honesty, buying investments, is it's a get rich slow game.
Yep.
It's kind of when it's almost glamorized, and when you're getting into it, it's like, oh my gosh, one deal, you take the cash flow, you retire, and you don't think of the other stuff. It's like, oh, I got units to turn, I got an AC to put in, like, I got investors to pay. So that one deal did not, I mean, it changed my life in the fact that I realized I can create something out of nothing.
Well, you have confidence, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest
thing. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
100%. It's after that first deal, it's everything changes, like, just up here. It's like people, your universe might not completely change, but you're like, holy crap, I can do this.
Yep.
I can create generational wealth. Like, I can build something out of nothing. That's what really changed for me in my life up to this point as well, after buying the 3. But I mean, cash flow wise, it didn't change my life, making a few $100 off it, but it's not like anything ridiculous.
But it's long term, right? And that's the thing people forget is, like, that people jump from Airbnb to Airbnb arbitrage to,
oh my gosh,
to what I see, like, another thing that's becoming very popular is like the senior living stuff. And then,
I've seen that too.
And then you have development and fix and flip and wholesaling. Like, there's so many different ways to make money in real estate that people forget that it's no matter what you do, what you're marketed, you never flip a switch and you have 50 grand rolling in every month. Like, it's a very slow, long-term build-up. And I think the slower it is, right, it's more guaranteed
100%.
and it's longer term, right? Because Airbnb, for example, a lot of guys are already getting screwed on it, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, have you seen Dallas? They banned it completely.
Yeah.
It's like these people don't realize it. It's always on the next new hot thing, the next new facade. It's like, at the end of the day, that's just not the way to play the game. I mean, a lot of people, they build all this crazy wealth in one thing. They're like, oh, I'm going to pivot. And that's when you lose it all. It's just become an expert at your thing, keep going slow and steady. It's not, I mean, you're not in the tech industry where you're like, one thing can change your life. You just skyrocket to the moon.
Yeah.
It's a get rich slow game, but it's the least risky thing out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sticking around with me and Caleb, or Caleb and I. As always, you guys can find this on all the different places you listen to audio podcasts. That's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the different ones, as well as YouTube. And honestly, on shows like this, when we're on the boat, YouTube's the best place because you get a really cool background. It's just a lot of fun. So if you want to get in contact with Caleb and learn more about how he's finding these deals off market and seller financing, well, again, he's going to be 2021 with 100 units this year. You can reach out to him at caleb.hommel on Instagram. We'll also tag his stuff below in the description here on YouTube and Apple and Spotify and everywhere else you're finding this podcast. So, as I always say, until next time, you're only one deal away.